everybody. Welcome into another episode of Coyotes Corner alongside Dave Vest. I'm Luke Lapinski. It's, mid-February, early February here, Dave?
Early February.
Time to check back in on the Coyotes, and there's been a lot going on lately. A lot of good going on lately.
There has. Look at that board.
Well, once again, you've put up a whiteboard that I can't really read much of, and then you highlighted certain words that don't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm noticing that now. Plus, it's multicolored, so it's kind of throwing me off. Like, the word Max Domi is actually written in two different colors.
Yeah, and you also have your bank account number and password up there, which I always forget to log into from my phone while we're doing the show. But maybe today will be the day. All right, so the Coyotes have won 4 of their last 6. Most recently over the Sharks in San Jose. The third time they've beaten the Sharks this year.
Yes, 3 out of 4.
3-0-1. Of course, the Sharks won the Western Conference last year. They lead the Pacific. Coyotes are the only team to beat San Jose 3 times this year. A lot of the Coyotes' wins, the vast majority of the season, have come against teams that made the playoffs last year and or are going to make the playoffs this year. So take that for however you want to take it, but I think it's a good sign.
I'm taking it as a positive because we both know how good the San Jose Sharks are.
Yeah.
And the Coyotes are just seemingly having their way with the Sharks. All 4 games, I believe, were 1-goal games. Yep. And the fact that the Coyotes are able to win 3 out of 4 of those bodes very well. We all know the Coyotes are a young team this year, mostly first and second year, and some third-year players, going up against the Joe Thorntons and the Brent Burns and the Patrick Marleaus. Very impressive, especially Saturday's game. I got to just take my hat off to everybody involved in that game, the way the Coyotes performed in that game and how they ended up winning it. It was just really a great way to go into a little break here, a little lull in the schedule.
It's always tough to beat San Jose in their building, but kind of building on what you were saying specifically Saturday, you can't even use the excuse of, well, maybe they snuck up on San Jose. They've already beat them twice, and they went to, I think it was overtime in the third game. So San Jose, if anything, looked at the Coyotes, and they're like, okay, we need to put an end to this, and instead the Coyotes win again. They play each other one more time in the season, but when you start to look big picture, you need to not only be able to beat the teams in your division this year, but have that confidence going forward. You mentioned there's a lot of first- and second-year players on this team that had never even played the Sharks before this year, and so when you want to start making the playoffs next year, whenever you're going to have to catch the San Jose's and the Anaheims and the LA's of the world, and we've seen the Coyotes have success against those teams in the last 2 years, so that's a good sign going forward. And beyond that, winning 4 of their last 6, I maintain they've played very good hockey in all of their last 7 games.
Yes, I agree.
So that's 7 straight really good games at this time of the year when you get the worry that maybe some of these rookies would hit a rookie wall.
I was just going to say exactly the opposite. You're right. The rookie wall, we hear about it every year. We saw it a little bit last year.
It was going to be the name of this podcast.
Right. I mean,
Dave's
trademark
nickname.
Issues.
Yeah. Dave the Rookie Wall Vests.
So far, knocking on wood here, there's not a hint of it. And that's great considering how many of these players for the Coyotes are first-year players. One last thought on beating the Sharks. It was just amazing to me. It's not like the Sharks kind of limped into that game.
Mm-mm.
They had won 8 out of 9. I mean, they're in first place, and they're really starting to hit their stride and starting to look like the defending Western Conference champs. And the Coyotes went toe-to-toe with them. And one of the best parts of that whole game was it's up on the board for later, but let's just talk about it now, the father's trip.
Oh, yeah.
The Coyotes brought their dads with them. Almost every player's father was on that road trip up to San Jose. They were all sitting together in a suite, as I'm sure everybody saw. If you watch the game on TV, and just some of the reactions the fathers were having to what was going on out on the ice, it was just priceless.
I want those fathers all gathered together to have their own web series or something, because they were here for the Chicago game too at Gila River Arena, and yeah, I mean they're just having a great time. It's an interesting dynamic because it's the first time the Coyotes have done it, but also you have Ty Domi mixed in there
and Jeff Chikrin.
Yes.
I mean, these are former NHL players and
who fought each other at one point.
They did.
And are really good friends now.
Great story in the New York Times, I believe, about that. But yeah, just having that mix, and they all seemed to get along. I mean, they were always smiling and taking group photos, and I loved Lawson Krause's father.
He was into it.
And that was just insane. Lawson Krause got into a fight with Brendan Dillon, I believe.
Yeah.
And after the fight, they panned up the camera to the father's suite, and I believe Lawson Krause's dad had taken off his jersey which his son's name and number is on, and is swinging it around and showing it down to the Sharks fans, who I assume were giving them a hard time, and they were just retaliating. Ryan White's dad as well, he had some fun with the fans. So all in all, that was a great experience. I imagine that's going to happen again and become an annual thing.
If I'm a fan of an opposing team and I'm going to give a hard time to a suite full of the opposing team's fathers, I'm picking a team that doesn't have Ty Domi in the middle of it, right?
Exactly. That would be wise.
Only 333 career NHL fights. So, back, not just the Sharks game, but just in general now this stretch. 7 straight games that they've played well. They've won 4 of them. The losses were 1-goal games, to Minnesota and Chicago and LA. The Chicago game is 2 games ago, and that was their worst period of the stretch, was the first period. Really impressed to see them bounce back and put up 3 in the second period and almost beat Chicago. For some reason, I still talk to people that don't follow hockey very closely, and they ask me, they're like, well, is this team really turning a corner, which I think they have. And that was going into the stretch of Chicago, San Jose, Montreal, and Pittsburgh. And I was like, yes, but that still holds true even if they come out of this stretch here without a lot of success, because these 4 teams might be the final 4 teams left in the playoffs when all is said and done. And yet they almost beat Chicago, and they did beat San Jose, so they're off to a good start.
Yeah, let's talk specifically about some of these guys that we're talking about as a group. Just, Luke, in your mind, who among the rookies has impressed you the most from the beginning of the season to now? Not spurts and flashes, but consistently through, 50 games now, 51 games?
Yeah. There's a few different ways to go with this. You said from the beginning of the season, when you originally just said which rookie, I'm still going to go with Brendan Perlini because he has 8 goals in, I'm trying to do, what is it? It's not a lot of games. It's about
26 games.
Okay, 26 games. And then he had 17 down at the AHL level too. So,
and a very nice shootout goal the other night, which doesn't count in the stats.
It doesn't, but he has been, to me, they needed a player specifically like him that can finish plays. Max Domi's a good setup guy, but if you ask Max Domi, he will say he's more a setup guy than a shooter. And you look around some of the other young players coming up, like Lawson Krause does a little bit of everything, and Jacob Chikrin's a good playmaking defenseman, but they have a pure goal scorer, which Brendan Perlini could be, and what they drafted him to be.
Absolutely.
To see him actually doing it at the NHL level instead of us just talking about how he will do it someday is refreshing. Also because with all the rookies this team has and all the prospects, Clayton Keller and Dylan Strome aren't even here yet, and Christian Fischer, for that matter, there was a sense almost that Brendan Perlini kind of got lost in the shuffle heading into this year, and he's doing exactly what they expected him to do in his first pro year.
He's the real deal. I mean, he can score goals at this level. I see him as a 20 to 25 goal scorer every year for the next 10, 15 years.
No pressure.
Thank you.
And you know what? I'll piggyback off that. I think that he even has upside closer to 30, not every year, but I think what's exciting about him is we don't know the ceiling yet.
Right. And just look at the way he scores these goals. These are pretty goals. I mean, he's not doing it because they're pretty. He just scores goals that are really pretty. These aren't, he's not knocking a loose puck in from the crease. He's scoring from the wings. He's scoring from the top of the slot. He's scoring from the point. He's got a nice shot, really fast shot. I mean, some of these goalies look like they don't even see the shot.
That's the key. It's the release, because sometimes you'll have a guy break in as a rookie and he'll get a bunch of really nice goals, and then you'll see him the next year and he won't score as much because he's just trying to get those really nice goals. But he's got that release, and he's got the size and the speed that everybody talked about in terms of skating. But that release is going to serve him well throughout his entire career. He's got the right attitude too. He really does.
He does. You mentioned Chikrin and Krause. Obviously, they've been here all season. A couple of games they missed as healthy scratches, but for the most part, they've played every game. Those two guys, they look like they're right on track. Chikrin ahead of schedule. I really did not expect him to be here this year. We've talked about that, but he looks like he belongs here.
Well, and I think what's interesting about him is he put so much effort into making this team, and he told everybody. You talked to him at the draft, and I talked to him at the draft over the phone, and he said, I'm going to make the team this year. And everybody's like, okay, that's cool. Like the organization has high expectations for you, but not necessarily this year.
I didn't believe him. I'll be honest with you. I just thought to myself, that's a great attitude, not happening.
Especially as a defenseman.
Right.
And so he was really solid in training camp. He was really impressive. Came out of the gate great. I feel like he almost did hit a little bit of a rookie wall, and Dave Tippett talked about this, but the thing is he's pushed through it. And I actually think he's playing a lot better again. And it's not the last couple games. It's really been the last month or so.
I agree 100%. He's the real thing, as I said about Perlini, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon. He's going to be, I think, a a top 4 defenseman for this team for a long time. The one guy we haven't mentioned yet is probably the one who deserves the most conversation.
He's been the most steady. He really has.
He really has. Not flashy. The beginning of the season, too, Dave Tippett talked about this. He was being protected a little bit because he's a rookie. He wasn't put into these situations where he could fail and take steps backwards in terms of development. Now he's in every situation. And I haven't said his name yet. Christian Dvorak, I'm sure you.
What if we just never said his name and the listeners had to guess?
It's not a call-in show.
Oh, okay.
Christian Dvorak, 47 games.
I was going to give out your phone number.
5 goals, 10 assists, 15 points. I mean, those numbers are okay if you just take them as numbers. But, I mean, for a rookie in the situation that he's in, being asked what he's being asked to do, I think Christian Dvorak has quietly been the Coyotes' top rookie.
Yeah, just because he has played so many games, and this is a concern. I know you and I have talked about this off the air in the past, or maybe even on the air during the game broadcasts or whatever, but there's a certain element when you have so many rookies that you expect them to just get better as the year goes. But then there's also the fear of that rookie wall, too. And Christian Dvorak has just steadily gotten better as the year has gone. We didn't even mention his faceoffs. I mean,
right.
That's an area that's tough for young players in this league.
And he struggled early on in the season, but not so much anymore, though his number has been consistently increasing and getting better, improving.
And it just makes sense. I mean, you're taking faceoffs against Joe Thornton, who's been in this league for 20 years. He not only knows all the tricks, he's probably bigger and stronger than you. He knows the referees' tendencies when they drop the puck. So it's a steep learning curve for a young center. And Christian Dvorak's a rookie, and he's been steady all year. He got sent to Tucson for about 2 hours at one point.
Yeah, right. I think he drove down there and just kind of turned around.
So, he's been impressive. The thing with the Coyotes collectively with these young players, and you're in the same situation I am, where there's maybe people who don't follow the team around town as closely as we do, so they haven't seen the rookies prior to this year. And you sit there and you tell them, like, these guys have the skill and the upside that you can't teach. It's just a matter of them getting the experience, which you can teach. We're seeing them get that now, and it's panning out with a lot of them. And you don't have to hit on every rookie or prospect, but they're hitting on most of them right now.
And one final thought. These guys are winners, okay? These are young players who have won at every level that they've played at. Sure, they're coming here. The Coyotes are struggling this season, but they're quickly figuring it out, Losing isn't going to set well with these guys. Christian Dvorak won a Memorial Cup not even a year ago. Okay, he knows what it takes. Max Domi, we talked about Max. I still consider Max a young man. He's what? He's in his second year.
He is a young man.
He's already a grizzled veteran.
He's played like 120 games or something.
That's a good transition because I see Max Domi's name up on the board there. Max came back last week, and everybody was thrilled. And, I think this team missed Max. Quite frankly, he was the leading scorer, point producer when he went down. Record without Max, 8-14-1, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So getting Max back, huge for this team. I know he's played a couple games and been kind of quiet in those games, but it's going to take him a little while, as Dave Tippett told us. He missed, he hasn't
2 months.
played.
He missed 2 months, yeah.
What are your expectations of him?
I still think he's the best pure offensive playmaker on this team. And, to your point you made a couple minutes ago about he's one of those guys, one of those young guys that's used to winning his whole career. And obviously a lot of the top prospects in hockey are going to be used to that when they get to the NHL level. But talking to Christian Dvorak the other night, right after the Blackhawks game, after they made that feverish comeback, it was his 21st birthday. He scored in that game. There was a lot of energy in the building. First thing he said is that start's unacceptable. You talk to Connor Murphy, who's another young guy, even though we don't consider him a young guy anymore, and he sounds like a coach, and he'll tell you, even after a win, yeah, but this needs to change. And just the reason I bring that up is hockey fans know, you look around the league the last couple of years, there have been teams that have had a lot of really talented young rookies, and they lose, and at a certain point, it just kind of, I don't want to say they accept it, but that's just all they know at the NHL level. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's good drafting or good fortune or whatever, or good leadership, the Coyotes, every one of these rookies I've talked to and second-year players, they're not accepting it. And I think that's why we've seen them get better here over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
So Max Domi is back. What do you think of the beard? It's a little Zach Galifianakis for me.
It's pretty solid. Wasn't there a Snapchat where his dad told him to shave?
Yes.
I don't know that I could play hockey with a beard like that. It would bother me. But he can, so, to each his own.
All right, next on the board, we want to talk about Mike Smith.
Yeah.
Because Mike has had quite a season, as we all know.
He's had quite a couple weeks, too.
Yeah, let's talk specifically about the All-Star game and his experience there.
You were there.
I was.
Also, I'll point out it smells like something's burning in the kitchen, so if this podcast ends abruptly, that's why.
Yeah, a fire alarm might be coming our way very shortly, so please don't be worried if you're listening to this.
Or do be worried.
You.
Okay.
Hey, the show must go on.
Yeah, that's true. We'll just keep recording.
Mike Smith went to the All-Star game. He was the Coyotes' lone representative there, and how can I put this? Kind of stole the show.
Certainly, well, you were there. I mean, I was just watching it on TV, but certainly the skills competition, he absolutely stole the show because every player they interviewed from around the league, that was the first name out of their mouth.
Right, and if you don't know what we're referring to, we'll just kind of set the table here. During the skills competition, there was an event called the 4-Line Challenge. One of the lines was the far goal line at the other end of the ice, 188 feet. Mike was inserted into this event as a substitution, a goalie substitution. So Mike took a shot, it went all the way down the ice, and it went into an empty net. And not just an empty net, it was an empty net with a board guarding it with a slot for the puck about 8 inches wide.
Yeah.
If that.
Coyotes fans will remember the Shoot for the Loot promotion from, 2 years ago?
Yes.
In the building where you're shooting from center ice, you get one shot, and you have to put it in that little opening in the 5-hole area. And if you made it, you got a pretty big prize, actually. And nobody ever made it because it's not easy to do.
It's impossible,
So
I thought.
Imagine doing it from twice as far in full goalie equipment, which, again, remember, big deal, you got shoulder pads. He's got a catching glove on one hand while he's shooting.
And he shot it with a goalie stick.
Yeah, that also not easy to do.
On a national stage with everyone watching, including the 100 greatest players of all time. So
Yeah,
there was no
deal.
pressure.
No, not at all. And you get one shot. It's not like he got 10 shots and one of them banked in. Right in. Didn't even touch
It didn't touch anything. I was sitting there at the Staples Center. I was aligned perfectly with the goal that it was going in, and I'm watching this unfold, and I'm about halfway through. I'm like, that's got a shot. And then another 2 seconds, I'm like, that's got a really good shot. And then it was like, that's going in.
And it's not even, it was like a full court basketball shot that didn't even touch the rim.
Perfect speed, too. I don't even think it hit the back of the net. It just kind of stopped
parked right in
the
there.
net. It was perfect. You couldn't have done it any better. It was amazing. The place went nuts, and it was ironic because when Mike was introduced, he got booed.
Well, that is, and I don't know how much, I'm sure you saw it in person, but certainly on TV they talked about it a lot. It wasn't just Mike Smith that got booed. It was every Pacific Division rival, except Johnny Gaudreau, who I think they thought was just a 12-year-old that was there. But everybody on San Jose got booed. Cam Fowler and somebody else was there from Anaheim got booed a lot, too. Maybe it was just Cam Fowler. Yeah, I mean, the LA fans were
Sure.
passionate about
But
letting their rivals know that they don't like them. But when Smith scored,
He
everybody
was the man of the
crazy.
hour.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody loved him, and rightfully so. It really did. Change everything. Mike became the hero of the night, and it was a lot of fun to be there and to see that happen. The next day, Mike tended goal for the Pacific Division in the All-Star game, or games, I guess you would call them, and Mike did okay.
Actually, he only gave up one goal in the
Yeah.
first game, which for an All-Star game is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I think he was stopped 11 of 14 shots.
Yeah.
Pacific Division reached the final, and they were the runner-up. So it was a good weekend for Mike. Great to see the Coyotes get that kind of exposure. I know Mike had a great time. He brought his family. His kids were the star. They were all over the place.
Yeah, his kids have personality.
They do. They have a lot of personality. And just to see Mike with them, it brought a real, human element to the whole thing. He was having a great time with his kids, more so, I think, than playing in the game.
I felt watching him at the event, that's what the All-Star Game's about. A lot of these guys, especially when you're the only guy going from your team, you don't have teammates that you're going there with. You've got just your family and Dave Vest, apparently. But that's what you're supposed to do. That was Mike Smith's first All-Star Game. I remember he said when he got the call, he was like, I was surprised. Well, and I get that, and that's fine. But then you start to look at what he's done this year. Kind of makes sense that he's in the All-Star Game. And he's, we talk about how the Coyotes have been in so many of these games, and now they're not getting discouraged at the end of the games and they're winning games. He's a major reason why they've been in a lot of these games, especially earlier in the year when these rookies were just sort of finding their way around the ice. So it's great to see him get to go. Great to see him get to go for the first time ever, and he really, I feel like, made the most of it.
Okay, so what is
written on your board? I don't know.
No, I'm trying to say, what am I trying to say? What lies ahead? It's a busy week. Towards the end of the week,
Yeah.
Coyotes have a couple practices this week and a day off, a rare day off in the middle of the week, which they probably need after a pretty compressed schedule after the All-Star game. Next up, game-wise, Thursday night against Montreal.
Yep.
A very good team. And then Saturday, well, why don't you talk about it? Because I know you grew up a fan of the team the Coyotes are going to play.
Well, just, like I said, this is the second half of a 4-game stretch that I think means a lot to the Coyotes in terms of how they handle each one of these games. And they came into this 4-game stretch playing pretty good hockey, but I think the key is for them to still feel good about their game coming out of this 4-game stretch. And so close against Chicago, and you beat San Jose. Now you've got the two teams from the East you got to deal with. Montreal has basically been on cruise control all year. They've been running away with the Atlantic, and they've got arguably the best goalie in the world. And then Pittsburgh, obviously,
they're good.
They're leading the NHL in goals per game. So
yes.
It's two different kinds of teams. You're going to face a team that's difficult to score against in Montreal, and a team that you have to score against because they're going to score in Pittsburgh. And I think these are two great challenges at the right time for the Coyotes.
And there's going to be a special guest at Saturday's game, Larry Fitzgerald of the Arizona Cardinals, recently named the NFL's Man of the Year, and who also recently announced that he's going to be back with the Cardinals for another season. He's going to be the guest of honor on Saturday, and fans are going to get a chance to get a nice Larry Fitzgerald bobblehead when they come out.
Yeah, first 10,000 fans. I believe this is the first ever Larry Fitzgerald bobblehead because they don't really give those away at NFL games.
Okay.
So
if you say so.
I'm pretty sure it is. The first ever official one from a game. I mean, there's manufacturers around the world that just make bobbleheads of everybody.
Is there a Luke Lapinski bobblehead?
There should be if there isn't, and I don't think there is. He'll be in the Coyotes jersey. He skated at practice on Monday, so that'll be something too. But it's cool. I mean, it's cool to see that unity between the Coyotes and Cardinals. Obviously, there's that sort of bond between Shane Doan and Larry Fitzgerald, so it's good timing to bring that together, like you said, right after Fitz announces he's coming back for another season with Arizona.
And in case we don't do another podcast between now and February 18th, we should tell people that the game that night, it's another Saturday game against San Jose. It's going to be a special night out here as well, as the Coyotes kind of put a wrap on the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the team moving here. There's going to be an all-Coyotes team announced that the fans have been voting on via the website. I won't spoil it. I know the results.
No, you already know the results?
I won't.
I knew you could see the future.
And then, some of the guys from the 1996-97 team will be here. It's going to be a fun night. So it's, dust off your Kachina jersey and get in your Saturn and put on the Gin Blossoms and drive on out.
It's basically be Dave for one night, driving your Saturn. Nice car reference there. That'll be a cool one. Last meeting with San Jose. So we've talked so much about how not only have the Coyotes beat them 3 times, but every game has been a 1-goal game. There's been, I think, 3 fights already. They've all been very entertaining. So that's the 5th one of the season, and expect San Jose to come out firing in that one. But for the Coyotes to do the same in front of the home crowd, they've been playing a lot better at home. That's one thing we haven't talked about here yet.
They have. Go ahead, talk about it.
Well, just getting a lot of wins on home ice, and you talk to some of the players about that, and they say that that's sort of the next step, they think, is to make sure that they're a very difficult team to play in their building. Obviously, it would be tough to play every single night, home or away. But at first, you need to establish that foundation of when you come into Gila River as an opposing team, you know it's going to be a long night. And they've been starting to build that over the last couple of weeks as well. And then, to go out and win that game in San Jose is maybe a push towards the next level. But, they've been a lot better at home. And like you said, with the 20th anniversary and all the former Coyotes in attendance, I thought the Coyotes, maybe it was coincidence, took their game to a new level with the 2 games the fathers were here watching.
You know what? There's so much you can say about that. I mean, the guys kind of joked about that before the game. Yeah. They're like, we better play well or we're going to hear about it on the plane ride home.
It's going to be like when we were 13 playing hockey or something.
So, then the logical question is, well, why don't we just have the dads here for every game? I think it might wear off a little if that were the case. Yeah. But, I don't think it was a coincidence.
It didn't seem like it because the players brought it up independently and then played really well against 2 really good teams.
They'd been struggling on the road. They hadn't won a road game since December 15th, I believe.
And you don't usually break out of those against the Sharks.
Might have been Ty Domi sitting up there.
Maybe. Maybe just send Ty Domi to every game.
All right, and then the last thing on the board is I have written down, let's talk about the trade deadline. That's on March the 1st. It's a couple weeks away yet, so I don't want to sit here and start naming names of guys that might be coming or going. I just want to kind of put it out there that it's coming up. There's no game that day. That's always good, but the Coyotes will be in the middle of a road trip. I believe they'll be practicing in Buffalo that day. So
sounds warm.
It does. That sounds very warm. So, yeah, that's coming up. That's a huge day, as we know. Lots of action league-wide as teams who are jockeying for the playoffs set their rosters. I guess we can mention Shane Doan real quick. That's come up publicly. John Chaika's addressed that on numerous occasions, that Shane, is in the final months of his current contract with the Coyotes. So we'll see. I mean, what's your gut telling you about that whole situation?
I just can't see Shane Doan leaving, and as everybody around the organization has said, it's his call. If he wants to leave, then they'll try and explore a trade, and they're not going to do anything stupid. But if there's a trade that makes sense for them, and he wants to go to that team, then maybe there's something there. I just can't see him leaving. Maybe it's because he's been here for 20 years. He's been with this organization for all the ups and all the downs, literally all of them. And so now, especially as the Coyotes start to play better and better, and he's friends with all those guys in that locker room, and a lot of those guys look up to him. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. That's just a gut feeling, but I can't see him wanting to leave. I
share your opinion. We've both been in the media, sports media, for a long time. Very few things surprise me.
Yeah.
I will say that the Atlanta Falcons blowing a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl surprised me.
That was interesting.
But I think Shane Doan leaving the Coyotes would surprise me even more.
Yeah, especially with the fact that they are playing better now. And I
just leave it at that.
Yeah. I don't think any fans would fault him, but it feels like he belongs here for obvious reasons. So, the other thing, too, you mentioned with the trade deadline coming up, it's just this point in the year we are now where all of these teams that have been here before and been to the playoffs, and the LAs and Chicagos and San Jose's, ironically, take their games to the next level. Dave Tippett has talked about this a lot. The players are, the guys that have been here, like Shane Doan and Oliver Ekman-Larsson, have brought it up as well. Those teams that are experienced, that make playoff runs, know that it's time to hit another gear coming out of the All-Star break, and they tend to. So this is a whole new level of tests for the Coyotes for these guys, because, again, all these first and even second-year players really haven't experienced playing. There's a difference between playing San Jose in February as opposed to early November.
Yes, absolutely. Well said.
Thank you.
Okay, so 31 games to go. We invite everybody to follow along. You want to tell them about our new venture?
The Facebook Live venture?
Yeah, why don't you? Let's do a shameless plug here.
We'll just plug ourselves on our own show?
Yeah.
So Dave's been doing the 5 tidbits. How long have you been doing this on Twitter? Since 1974?
I believe 74 or 75.
Okay, that makes sense. Because Twitter was a thing then.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It wasn't nearly as popular.
No,
it was just basically me and my friend.
It was just you writing on your wall. No, Dave's been doing that. You do that before every game, home or away.
Correct.
But for home games, we've started to have you on the pregame show every once in a while, as time allows, to kind of not just write them, but actually expound upon them a little bit and have a little back and forth. But now, that's the pregame radio show. We've been doing the Facebook Live thing for about a month or so now.
Yeah.
Kind of gives the viewers, I guess in that case, a chance to chime in with questions as well.
That's what I like about it. I mean, I'm doing the tidbits, and we discuss and debate them.
That's sort of the basis that we work from.
Right. We crack some jokes. But then the fans kind of take over and ask us questions, and I've really been enjoying doing that. We get a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we can't get to them all, and I apologize to the fans who've written and haven't gotten an answer.
Some really good questions, too.
There are. So check that out, please. We invite you. It's usually about 5:15 for a 7 o'clock game. If it's a Saturday, it's about 4:15.
Yeah.
Live on Facebook, myself and Luke, and your questions.
Just the home games.
Just the home games.
But yeah, from the arena, it's cool. Right before, get ready for warm-ups and everything in the game to start. So if there's any late-breaking news, we have it at that point. So it's a cool way to interact. Dave, this was fun. I will thank executive producer Doug Cannon for putting this together, even though he hasn't technically done it yet, but he will shortly. So for Dave Vest, I'm Luke Lapinski. Thanks for listening to Coyotes Corner.